with the Barbary Coast. The other one will be about Mark Levin talking about that same thing, and then there will be a short video on the Blaze. And I started thinking about this because I watched a movie with Liam Neeson called The Kingdom of Heaven. I sent out the message broadcast talking about this, and I thought it was so relevant, and this thing happens in France. The thing that I realized is that the hero of Islam was a man called Saladin. And he rescued, from an Islamic perspective, Jerusalem from the hands of Christians. That city on the hill that had been the Jewish treasure had been controlled by a Christian kingdom. And Saladin took the mantra of Islam and rallied the taxes of all the Islamic countries that surrounded that region and put all of the warfare, the effort of war, the mechanisms of war of that day, and he came against the king of Jerusalem. It was barbaric. It was the movie, if you get a chance to watch it, it's worth watching. But what I saw in that movie is something that was chilling. The barbarism, I'm getting pretty used to it, seeing a severed head on a stick, or watching the bloodletting. With the events of Islam, it's not so unusual anymore. But what I saw and realized in that movie, The Kingdom of Heaven, with Liam Neeson, was the depicting of the left, the Hollywood left, of the Crusades and of Saladin's Islamic overthrow of Christian Jerusalem. See, because the depiction of I understand the Crusaders, I understand the Knights Templars, I understand it was dirty business, you understand, it was bad. I understand that everything, when you overtake a kingdom, people are going to die. And in that time, the sword was the way you died. So it's bad business. But what the Hollywood left and the socialists in this country, the political correct socialists in this country, have depicted in that movie, The Kingdom of Heaven, The Kingdom of Heaven, was that the noblemen were the Islam, the Saladin. He had a noble mission. And as they attacked the walls of Jerusalem, you could hear the Allah Akbar. The Crusaders, the Templars, and the other Crusaders, as they were driven to go rescue Jerusalem, they were saying, God wills it. Now, Christians often consider, before you do an important thing in your life, you often consider what is the will of God. You don't proclaim. See, this is the thing that is another leftist depiction of how a Christian communicates with his Lord and Savior. I don't say God wills it. I look at God and say, what is God's will? I don't proclaim from my perspective that God wills it and put that on the actions of other people. Now, that's how the Hollywood left looked at all of what the Crusades were about. God wills it. We say God wills it, so you go. And all the bad things that happened, and it was very bad. They depicted the Crusaders as very bad people. But the Islamic Muslims of Saladin were depicted as a noble, righteous group of people who only wanted to restore Jerusalem to its original habitat. Now, I want to say a little bit about that before we get into the founders of our country and how they were influenced by Islam. You see, because when the children of Israel were in exile, God promised the seed of Abraham the land of milk and honey, where grapes of Eshcol grow, the promised land. And so as they were in exile, the time came, they crossed the river Jordan. And the first battle that they fought, the Bible scholars here, what was it? Joshua fit the battle of Jericho. And there's something very important about the city of Jericho. This was before the walls of Jerusalem, see? This was before Israel had a kingdom. This was when only the inhabitants of Palestine, or Jericho, were the cousins, you understand, of Esau and Ishmael. Well, why did Jericho have walls? Walls serve a purpose. Walls keep invaders from coming in and taking your good stuff. Walls protect you. And what, George?
They make good neighbors.
They make good neighbors. Or they protect you from bad neighbors. So, with Joshua understanding God's will, they marched around the city, and it was God's will that those walls came down. I'm not preaching to you. I'm trying to give you some history of what's going on in France right now. Those walls fell outward. That wasn't an invading force that knocked the walls over and took them over. When those walls fell outward, the occupants of Jericho said, hey, this must be God's will. And so it wasn't that it wasn't bloody, it was just that it was understood that the children of Israel had a victory there, and they went on to Jerusalem. And they ended up through a litany of time and circumstance, building an empire in Jerusalem and losing an empire. And it becoming a Christian empire. And then the Islam, through the Ottoman Empire, having been formed after the failure of Constantine, the Ottoman Empire rose up, got so political, got so powerful because of tribute. Because of tribute that they exorcised from every single state and community in their auspices. So they had money. So they came and took a Christian city on the hill. And this is very, very important to understand. I think it's the most important thing we can be talking about. We talk a little bit about politics, Donald Trump, Ben Carson, whatever. And I don't, you know what, I don't think it's as important as what we're seeing today. Because I don't think whoever gets elected, right or left, up or down, Democrat or Republican, that they're going to handle this Islamic situation in the right way. I'm not hearing it. I am not hearing it. Because, as Ronald Reagan said, America is that shining city on the hill. And America, he's used it quite often, and I like his analogy, is the New Jerusalem. And we have a new Saladin. We have a new, and I'm not afraid to say it, Islamic force using Muslims, and Muslims willing to be used, to again take a shining city on the hill from the Christians. Do you think that's not what their mission is? I heard on the radio Theron today talking about, he posted a picture on his Facebook of a woman beheaded and an ISIS person with his finger up. Remember we had a movie or a video on Shahada? So how many knows what Shahada is in Islam? Shahada is bearing witness. Now as Christians we bear witness to the salvation of Jesus Christ, the gospel of Jesus Christ. That's what we bear witness to, and that's what the battle is here, folks. I'm going to tell you it's what the battle is. You have to understand whether you're Christian, faithful, whether you're an atheist, no matter agnostic, no matter what you are, this battle is a religious battle. And Islam has a thing called Shahada. And the video that I showed had all kinds of frames, maybe 10 different frames with ISIS, finger up, fence back behind them, with the heads of Christians hanging on that fence. Finger up. This is Shahada. It's bearing witness. But do you know what they're bearing witness to, folks? Do you know what Shahada bear witness to? Theron missed this. He didn't get it. He didn't get it right. The first pillar of the Islamic faith that they chant 5 times a day. Today, over here on Ford Boulevard, they chanted 5 pillars of faith. The first pillar is the oneness of God. That God has no partners. That Christians are polytheists. Do you understand the point? Because you believe Jesus Christ is God, you are a polytheist. And they have a name for it. They call it shirk. We are shirks. I've talked about this before, and sometimes I hear myself going over it and I'm saying, and we have a few people here, people must not like hearing this message because there's more important things to do. I'm going to say to you, thanks for coming. There's nothing more important you could have done tonight, unless it had to do with personal safety in your family or your personal faith and the endeavors that you would have proceeded in your being here tonight. Because this lesson needs to be understood, because this shining city on the hill, this New Jerusalem, is going to be taken if it is that the liberal left has left us defenseless, because they have. They want us not to be able to defend this country, and Islam is going to come and take this city on the hill from Christians once again. It's what they're doing in France. When these refugees crossed that Mediterranean to Greece, there's very few Christians from Syria. You know, there's a lot of Christians in Syria. And there's a lot of Christians fleeing Syria. They don't make it to the other side. There's a reason that when the refugees get to America that only 5% are Christians. Do you get my drift, so to speak? Because when you leave a country like Syria for your life, you take everything you own and you have it in a bag or you have it in your pocket. And if you're on a boat with maybe 150 other people, and there's maybe 25 of those people are Christians, and when it gets to Greece, there's only maybe 5 Christians, and the money and wealth are in the hands of Muslims, because they threw them overboard. They overthrew the Christians once again. And that's why we only get 5% of refugees coming to this country that are Christians. And understand this, they're all young men. The majority of them are young men. Why aren't they staying to fight for their country? Go ahead, you have a thought?
I just want to comment about that same thing. Why do they all look clean shaven? If I'm a refugee.
Well, there's a lot of Christians that are coming, but the ones that get here, you know, I don't know that I'm telling you right now, I believe it's a Trojan horse. I think that we have to be so careful. I want to get back to the point I was making about what's happening with. Now I have forgotten the point.
France, stood on the hill.
Yeah, France stood on the hill. We have to build our walls here in this country. And it's not a wall on the Mexican border. It's a wall of understanding. It's a wall of Christian scriptural knowledge. And I prayed in my prayer today, and I thought very seriously before I prayed that prayer, that if God is a God supporting Islam, then the scriptures are lies. Because my scripture says that Christ says, I am the way, the truth, and the life, that no man comes unto the Father but by me. Jesus Christ is saying that. And Islam 5 times a day will say that Jesus Christ is a liar. And I'm just tired of people who want to be so politically correct, so inclusive, that they will include an accusation of my Savior lying. I don't often speak about my faith, but I often speak about the foundation of this country, which was Christian. And it's obvious. You can go back and you can tell. Now, the Mayflower Compact says, for the furtherance of Christianity, do we embark on this voyage? It's clear. And it's also clear that these oceans were the protectorates of the moneyed people in Europe. Once the Christian Church of Spain funded the Nina, the Pina, the Santa Maria, whatever. Once they funded that, and Christopher Columbus or Leif Erikson, you know, maybe he did, but once the church funded the discovery of this country, and this country became a country of existence and could protect the investments of the bankers. Somewhere after the War of 1812, when they figured out that England couldn't take it back, these European bankers, folks, which I'm sorry if I say they were Jewish, they were Jewish, European international bankers, and they brought their money here, they brought their empire here for what reason? To protect it, because why? The Ottomans were blowing everything up because the borders are so easy to cross. Myrna was talking about that today. Just before the meeting. There is not borders over there that can be protected between those countries. So your empires, even the castles you might be able to afford to build, is not going to protect your empire. So they brought their empire here. The Jewish international bankers used these oceans and the sacrifice of our founding fathers, that when this country was formed, then they used it to protect their empire. That's why they call it the Empire State, because of the investments and that's why Wall Street here, that's why everything money is in New York. That's why we have an Empire State Building. Just understand something here, that these oceans are God's gift to this country, and they have protected this country, and they will again if we have the right foreign policies. We cannot continue to militarize with funding Islam. And we continue to do it. I wrote a piece and I called it Putting Wings on Camels. And what we've done because of the petrodollar, we have funded radical Islam. Because we will mercenary our military, go over there and give Saudi Arabia anything they want. Saudi Arabia can do anything they want, and we will give them anything they want, so long as they'll sell oil in US dollars. And it's like a tribute that we pay them. For them doing that, we protect Saudi Arabia. We will take out any... Saudi Arabia wants Assad taken out in Syria. Assad. Okay? Right now, we don't know what to do about ISIS because we created ISIS. Benghazi is one of the most important things that we could be talking about, and we won't talk about it because it'll hurt Hillary. This country will not talk about Benghazi. How many times have the Republicans talked about Benghazi on the campaign trail? I haven't heard it so much yet. There's nothing more important. Because in the circumstance of Benghazi proved that we put money into the taking out of Gaddafi in Libya, and we built up an army to overthrow him. That army was Al-Qaeda. It was the ISIS, pre-ISIS. And we wanted to take the money and weapons we invested in Libya, and we had a plan to go through Turkey and deliver those through Benghazi to Syria, to the Free Syrian Army. The Free Syrian Army wanted their country back, folks. It was like our 1812 warriors who were in the belly of the English warship, and we sung our national anthem that came from it, O Say Can You See, by the dawn's early light. These were patriot Americans who wanted to know if that flag still stood, if it still flew over the land of the brave, home of the brave. These were Syrian patriots who wanted their country back. So we had proper motive. General Paul Vallely was over there trying to train these people to overthrow Assad. But see, there's so many elements of deceit in our foreign policy. Right now we are so convoluted that we have to fight Russia because Russia wants to overthrow ISIS. That's why ISIS blew up the Russian plane, because Russia's blowing up ISIS in Iraq. We're convoluted in our foreign policy because we want ISIS now to take out Assad, because Assad will sell oil in something other than US dollars. Assad will sell Russian oil to China using the yen or the renminbi or something other than US dollars. That's why we want Assad out. That's why our policy is convoluted. That's why we will not point an indictment towards Saudi Arabia. The Wahhabis, Al-Qaeda, the people of Saudi Arabia do not like the secular king of Saudi Arabia. These people are they're what you call Tawhidist. That is the original founder's intent of Islam. And when you want to go to the original founder's intent of Islam, and these videos will talk a little bit about it, you better be aware that that's exactly what's happening in France right now. And that's exactly what that woman, and what I forgot I wanted to get to, was Theron talking about he says the finger pointing toward the ISIS flag. That's not what that finger means. That finger says the oneness of God. And I told you that one time we showed several different clips, and the last clip was President Obama before the Islamic Association of North America, clapping and smiling, and Obama's walking in front of them, and he's holding that finger up to them like this. And they are so grateful that this messenger of Islam, the poser in chief, because I say he is a poser, proclaims the oneness of God, that God has no partners, because that's what that means to Islam. And he knows it. He's a smart man. You can't call him stupid. He knew what he was signaling to Islam, that he is saying that God has no partners in it. Jesus Christ is a liar. That's what this means. He didn't have beheaded heads behind him, but they did behind them. When Rick Snyder welcomed the Islamic Association of North America to Detroit and to Michigan, they have beheadings behind them, and I don't care what people say. I don't care if they were unindicted co-conspirators to launder $12 million, folks, to radical Islam over there. And if you're going to launder $12 million, you are guilty of pulling the trigger or swinging the blade. I don't care how moderate, how accepted, politically correct that we think we have to be as a country. We are going to lose this shining city on the hill if we do not recognize the Islamic threat. Okay, so right now, I'm going to settle down a little bit, and we're going to watch these videos of some people who are saying the same thing. The Barbary Coast were Islamic terrorists in the Mediterranean Sea who wanted tribute from